Welcome to the Field of 68 After Dark's YouTube channel. We are going to be live every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube and on Stadium for the entirety of the spring. What was the biggest offseason storyline for you when it comes to the Big 12? It can be something team specific, it can be something conference specific, it can be something big picture, it can be something small picture. What was it for you?
I mean, I think it's just Arizona coming into the league as much as anything. Like when you told me we're doing this, again, you start looking at last year and everything, and you forget like Arizona and Arizona State. But again, Arizona, as much as anything, are coming into the Big 12, and they're coming in at a tough time. Now, I assume they're going to have Caleb Love back because I don't know where else he's going to go. So I think he comes back, and that's huge for Tommy Lloyd. I'm not all the way in on Caleb Love, but I know they need him. I know they need him badly. So I think that'll make him competitive at the highest level here. I don't know if they win the league. I mean, they could still, again, they could finish fifth in the Big 12, and it wouldn't surprise me at all this year. Because, again, how are you cracking those top four? I just think it's the strength at the top and the power at the top of this league right now that is going to make the Big 12 the best basketball conference in America next year. And I don't even know who's second.
Yeah, to me, I think one of the biggest storylines was that the conference kept their coaching talent. And by keeping their coaching talent, they were able to find a way to keep some of these teams that have finished near the top of the league in the league, right? Like we saw Kentucky open, we saw Louisville open, we saw Michigan open, we saw some really big jobs open, and Jerome Tang still in this conference. TJ Otzelberger still in this conference. Scott Drew was still in this conference despite trying to be wooed by Kentucky. And part of the result of that has been an increase in NIL budgets, an increase in the ability of some of these programs to be able to go out and get players out of the portal. So it was, to me, the biggest storyline was kind of the like Kings stay Kings situation here in the Big 12. And not the least of which was, we saw Baylor spend some money on Jeremy Roach and Norchad Omier, right? And we saw Kansas State go out and get a guy like a Doug McDaniel, who we're going to talk about here in a second. But Kansas, man, like Kansas went through a season which was probably the toughest season we've seen Bill Self have in a long time with the Jayhawks. Now he went out and not only kept Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris, who was like three of the four studs that they had last year, but he went out and he filled out the rest of his roster with a bunch of guys that are going to end up being really, really good pieces there. In terms of this season, I think the most interesting storyline that we're going to get throughout the year in this conference is going to be Iowa State, right? Because they were a team that kind of came out of nowhere, returns everybody. And it's one of those ones where we see this from other programs in the past where it's like, okay, well, you're pretty good and you bring everybody back and you don't really add more pieces to it. So how much better are you going to be next year versus some of these other teams that have reloaded and retooled? And now, since they had all the offseason buzz, are going to end up getting more hype. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. I mean, who knows, right? It works last year. But I love Lipsy. Do they have those like high end pros? Now, who does? That's what I keep going back to. Not a lot of teams have them. Those guys generally are gone after a year if they're that good. But yeah, I think we've seen it happen enough lately, where these teams bring back everybody. 2 years ago, it was Carolina. They fell flat. Last year was Michigan State. They fell flat. Can Iowa State come back and pick up where they left off, or is it a kind of a new year and they lost momentum? And I don't think the culture will suffer at all. You're just interested to see how they come back with kind of the targets on their back instead of sneaking up on people all year like they did last year.
Thanks for watching the Field of 68 After Dark. Make sure to hit that like button.